Did you ever play the Peel Sessions?
No, we never did a Peel session.
No. He helped a lot of young bands, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, when we started, we kind of bypassed that almost John Peel. When we met U2 in 1981, and in 1983 they took us on tour to America, and we broke in America before Britain. Right. Our first television appearance was in America. Our first chart position was in America. Our single, The Stand, took off in America before 68 Guns in Britain and all this sort of thing. And so when we came back, we'd kind of like jumped ahead of ourselves. So we missed out the John Peel scene. Right. We'd gone from playing we got a phone call to go to America to play with U2. We were playing at Cambridge Scout Hut, which shows you how big we were. and then we come back and there's a buzz, and we're all we're filling the marquee and we're selling out this and selling out that, and then it all changes, And
we were talking earlier about climbing and walking. John Peel, he passed away, didn't he? Machu Picchu, it was Peru, I think.
That's right. I believe so. Yeah.
Awful, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
He sounded a great guy. I always was. He was inspirational myself because he gave young bands a chance.
Yeah, he did. He was essential listening to tune in to the record show. And then, for me, he started to, at once, his job was to champion young and new things all the time.
New talent.
And then, to me, it started getting too eclectic at times for me. But when the heyday of John Peel, when he was championing the Undertones and Echo and the Bunnymen and Joy Division, it was brilliant. But when it was obscure bands from like Latin America or something, was playing world music. When it was punk, it was still he was championing bands before they came really big. And he discovered millions of things. But I didn't want to. I always liked music that's got strong melody to it and strong connection. I was never a big fan of experimental music for the sake of it, or experimental music per se. I like music I could relate to and connect with. I'd grown up music on the terraces, hearing Slade and T-Rex blasting over the old tannoy systems on the football grounds, and that's what I connected to when it started to become obscure music, and then I kind of disconnected from John Peel, but I went for more DJs like Kid Jensen and Peter Powell, and maybe played a bit more of a safer bet, but they were championing the bands that I grew up with, like the Cult or U2 and a big country. These are bands that weren't John Peel bands as such. They were, but he discovered a lot of the postcard bands, Joseph Kay and Edwyn Collins and all that stuff.
Did Edwyn Collins? He was Scottish, wasn't he?
He's Scottish, great.
Did you play football as a youngster and back to the football?
I did, yeah.
What position were you? You
were I was always in the middle.
Oh, centre midfield.
Yeah, I was a full back at first when I was a kid, but I wasn't. I was a bit scared of getting in the tackles.
Oh, so was I.
But there was a guy that I used to play with my age, and there was two guys. There was one called Keith Jones, and he was the son of Rill's football manager Dick Jones. Yeah. And he ended up at West Ham. He never made it through, but he ended up at West Ham, and he was an electric left winger. Right. And then there was another guy called Peter Parry, who was a brilliant inside forward. He probably should have played for Everton, but he went up to head a ball one day, and he felt something go in his brain, so he was advised to stop playing football. But he was a brilliantly talented player.
So were you skillful, a tough tackling? What were you?
Well, he used to, when I was playing at left back, he'd come up and go, "It's him, and I go, right, okay, and I hit him, and then he kind of got me over the fear of tackling. Right. And then when I could tackle, I ended up moving into the midfield then, because I had a good stamina on me. Right, yeah. I could keep going. I wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but I just So I idolised people like Brian Robson was my sort of hero as a youngster growing up, and I always knew that Robbo used to time his runs. He was the best at getting in the box last. And he could pick out the trajectory. Scored a lot of headers late on. He knew where to be, and that was what I kind of prided myself on.
When you met Robbo in the box, was that the first time you met him? Have you
I've met him. I went once. Gary Bailey, who was the United.
Yeah, the keeper, the blonde lad.
I met him at a BBC radio programme once, and so he invited me to go and see United, and he gave me Players Lounge tickets, and I went in the Players Lounge, and Brian Robson was there, but I was so scared. I didn't dare go and ask for his autograph. I was so in awe. And so, the first time I met him properly was seeing him in the box.
Right, the best laugh, unknown to you, we're travelling down, and I've got to several games a season with Pally and that, and we're going down, and somebody mentioned, you know, I like music. They went, oh, Mike Peters the Alarm, he's meant to be coming and that. So I'm sitting there, obviously I know what you look like, or what you've looked like, and I'm sitting there, and this guy walks in, short hair, really thin. I thought to myself, I didn't say it loud, I went, fucking hell, Mike's changed a bit. And it was your mate, Gary. And then you came in, I was going, thank God for that. Thank God didn't open my mouth. I was thinking, that's not me.
That's brilliant.
I didn't mention that in the night. As you've get more mature, has your choice in music changed?
Yeah, it has really. I think it's widened.
Yeah.
You know, I like soul music.
Yeah.
I love Northern soul. You know, but I did grow up with that in real. You know, I really grew up with the Northern soul thing was big in real because it was it was in the clubs, all on the seafront and everything. Yeah. And I really liked all that. And then the punk thing took over. But yeah, I like pretty much everything nowadays. You know, I got to see Frank Sinatra once, and that absolutely blew me away. Yeah. And so, you know, I like a bit of that.
Where did you see Sinatra? Was
at the Royal Albert Hall with Sammy Davis Jr. and Liza Minnelli. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'd been on tour with Bob Dylan, and I got to know Bob Dylan's management. There's a guy called Jeff Kramer who still manages Bob Dylan to this day, and he said, look, we were making an album in London in 1989, and I saw that Frank Sinatra was playing at the Albert Hall, so I phoned Jeff Kramer and said, hey Jeff, I know you've got connections to the Sinatra through Bob Dylan. Yeah. What's the chance of me getting a ticket? You know, and he went, leave it to me. And I get a call that you got to go to the stage door, and you ask for this guy called Luigi, and you're sorted. So I went up there, and this Luigi comes out, and he's part of Sinatra's Mafia kind of crew, and he goes, here you go, here's 2 tickets, Jeff, here's your 2 tickets, and that'll be $2,000 each. I went, I'm not paying that. And he goes, only having you.
Oh, right.
These I don't know whether he was having me or not.
Yeah, well, maybe if you had the money and you ended up took it.
Extort $2,000 out of me, but I went in and I was sat in the second row, right behind Bob Hoskins, the actor, and Roger Moore. Right, and 10 rows back from me was Martin Edwards, who was the owner of Man United. So even his tickets weren't as good as mine. Right. And Sinatra came on and he sang Moon River, and it was like, oh my God, the depth in his voice, and you know, like Sammy Davis Jr. was amazing. Yeah, he was amazing. Liza Minnelli, and they sang together, and it was incredible. It was before social media, so you didn't sometimes realise how great these people were till you actually got in the room with them. Yeah. You know, and it was a rare thing to be able to see Sinatra at that time. So I've always loved Frank for that. In the 80s you had several albums out. Was there one that you think that was unbelievable? Or? Well, our first album, Declaration, is still a strong record. It's still got a core of songs that, you know, they demand to be played all the time. Yeah. And I mean, it's coming up for its 40th anniversary. But I still thought there was a better album in it than we actually made. Right. You know, what had happened to the Alarm, instead of making the natural steps to making our first album, most bands, when they make the first album, they're still pretty unknown, whereas we weren't. Ironically, we made an EP, we made 2 singles, and they're all raw and they sound great. And then we got this opportunity to go to America with U2, and when we were driving to our first gig, we were tuned into the American radio in San Francisco, and Bono and The Edge were on, and they said, we were listening to it was before their show, and they were playing San Francisco Civic, 8,000 people there. Right. And they said, look, do you mind not playing New Year's Day, because we're finishing the interview now, but you've played that 5 times all day. Can you put this record on by this band from Wales that are playing with us tonight? And they played our single, The Stand. Wow. And we were like, wow, my God. You know. And then we played the gig, and we were at Red Rocks when they did that. Right, I remember the Red Rocks. I bought the video. We were there and all that for that. Wow. And then we did our first, when we got to LA, we did our first TV show for the Cutting Edge. We got on American Bandstand and playing The Stand. And it took, you know, next minute we got like 100,000 record sales under our belt. Wow. Out of nowhere. And I think America took to us because there was no hype. like when the Oasis and the Stone Roses went over after us, they were massive in Britain, and it was like, okay, prove it to us, you know, and they came over with that sort of superstar attitude because they weren't known, and why shouldn't they have it? Whereas we would like keen, you know, and fresh, and we were like, wow, what, you playing on record? Oh my God, you know, shaking hands, and then the American DJs felt like they found a band for themselves, and so when we flew back from the tour into Britain, and we thought we were going straight back to do our own tour now, headlining across America, and we thought we better, you know, Labour said you better record a song so we can put it out, keep your British fans happy. So we recorded 68 Guns, which was inspired by a book called The Glasgow Street Gang Observed.
I heard you saying that on the night I met you the first. Is that true then?
That's true, yeah. I'd read this book, and it was a bit Northern Soul-y at the time, and there was all this mod culture going on, and a guy that I knew called Russ Taylor, who's passed away now, he was a big mod in the mod scene, and he said, look, you've got to read this book, it's about youth culture in Glasgow, it's about great music and bands, and what young people, when they're in that twilight zone, they're not young enough to go to the pub, and they're not old, they're too old to go to the youth club, so they hang out on the street corners, and it was about a gang called the Youth Team, which were a feeder into the Mary Hill Fleet.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
This big Celtic gang, you know,
I've heard of them.
And that it was all set in the 60s, around the 68 time.
Wow.
And that was.
So we're sitting in Glasgow, and you're telling us your biggest sort of hit single.
It was inspired by Glasgow itself, and so I read the book, and 68 Guns was just. It was a fictional gang, really. That's where the title came from. 1968, 68 Guns, Youth Team. But it was all about belonging, and it was all about what made people stand back to back and face life's challenges. And there was a line in the song that got cut out when it became a single, because we had two verses before the chorus, and the producer said, "Oh no, you've got to take one of them out." And we took the second verse out, but we had the line that epitomises what the Alarm and the song's all about, and it was, if they take our chances, we'll create our own, and that was the street. That's how you did it on the street. You didn't have any chance in life, so you made your own, whether it was making clothes or creating a fanzine or starting a band or becoming a football player to get above the constriction of the streets, you know, so, and society at that time. So that was what the song was all about, and we recorded it, went straight back to America, carried on the tour, and then it became a hit in Britain out of nowhere.
Did you have an inner feeling that this is going to be?
No, we hated it.
Oh, right,
because we recorded the backing track. It made us take a verse out of the song, which we weren't that happy about.
Who made you take it out?
The producer, Alan Shacklock.
Okay.
I love Alan. And he did a great job. And somewhere along the line, one of us said, make it sound like Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, which it does. But we didn't realise when we heard it back that we did the backing track and all the vocals, and then Alan was due to mix the song. And we went off to do 4 gigs. And when we came back and we heard the final mix, it was presented to us like a fait accompli. There was Miles Copeland, who was the manager of the Police, owned our record label. Right. Ian, our manager, was there. Steve Tannett, who'd signed us, was there, for the A&R man for IRS Records. And they went, listen to this. Alan Shacklock blasts it out, and it starts up with these all these horns and trumpets. And we went, where do they come from? and they'd been put on while we were away. Right. And Eddie, our bass player, went psychopathic and nearly smashed up the studio. Right. But they go, trust us, lads, this is going to do well. And we were leaving for America the next day, so we couldn't put up too much of a fight. We were naive.
You just left it with
them. Didn't really know. We thought we've been screwed again. We go off to America and we carry on as normal. And then next minute the single comes out, and it doesn't do great. Our fans get it into the 70s in the chart, but then luck plays its part. At the time, Top of the Pops would only have bands on it that were going up the chart. And there was a band called Public Image with Johnny Rotten.
I remember that, yeah.
And they were the band that were going up into the charts that should have been on Top of the Pops, and they said, we're not going to do it. And the only band that they could find that were in an upward position, they had to come outside the top 40, and they found that was the Alarm. And Miles Copeland, being who he was, quite entrepreneurial and forward thinking, said, get them on the plane. We'll pay the tickets. We'll get them back to Top of the Pops. And so we found out we were coming up. We flew back to do Top of the Pops. We recorded it on a Wednesday, and we flew straight back after the performance to carry on the tour.
Wow.
And we never got to see the show. And then when we flew back a couple of weeks later, it'd gone in the charts now. Mike, because we met Mike Reed, the DJ, and we had a jam with acoustic guitars in the dressing room. We thought we were great, and he championed us on the breakfast show and turned it into a massive hit. And then we come back and get off the bus in Kensington High Street, and all these girls mobbed me, and I can I have your autograph? Yeah, here you go. What's your name?
They didn't think you were Brian Ferry, did they?
No, Mike, they said, you don't sound American. I went, I'm from Real, why would I sound American? And they go, yeah, you look American and all this sort of stuff. And I don't know. Anyway, when we got home, we came home to Real, and my mum and dad had arranged for a party in my house and to celebrate. And my dad had bought one of these massive video recorders to capture his son on telly.
Yeah.
And then we all gather around the TV, and we've never seen ourselves on telly before. And he hits play, and then it comes up, and there's Simon Bates. He goes, this band were on tour in America the other day, and we've flown them in to be on Top of the Pops. This is the Alarm. And so that's how everyone thought we were an American band when we got introduced on Top of the Pops. But we were really from real North Wales. But you know, I think because of all that, when we made our first album, there was pressure on us to have hits by then. We'd had a hit in America with The Stand, we'd had a hit now with 68 Guns, we're going to do the album. So there was a different, we didn't know it at the time, but there was a different politic about the band, and the producer was getting it from the label and the manager saying, we need hits on it, it's got to break America. So they tidied us up a lot more in the studio than if we'd gone in and we were making a record and there was no expectation. They said, just let's make a great record on the cheap, get him in, record how they play it live, get it down. Instead, we go to Abbey Road to make the album and all this instead of some cheap studio. But I think that's the album that got away from the Alarm, that raw, when we were hot. And we didn't. It was naive, and it had tension in it, and instead we got a bit polished up. But it doesn't take away from the songs that are on Declaration. It's still a great album, but for the people who bought it and heard it and bought into that, they loved the Alarm. But there was a certain audience that we had at that time that thought it's not raw enough for us anymore. It's been tidied up. It's time to go and follow New Model Army or something.
When bands do a tour or a solo artist tours, does it become repetitive, boring, laborious, travelling, singing the same song? This is right over the board.
Yeah.
Would you shoe
Absolutely. Look, when you're on a tour bus with
what's that like?
I mean, it's great at first because it's exciting. It's got lounges, and when in the 80s you had video cassettes, and you could watch films, whereas you never had access to that stuff before as a kid. So it was great, but then when it's become months and months and months of that, and you get off the bus, you do the gig, you get back on the bus, you go to the next gig, it becomes laborious. Not the music. I always say with the band, it was the travelling that we got paid for, getting on the planes, putting up in the tour buses, checking in and out of hotels. We went on stage for free. But it was all that stuff that we got the recompense for, and so that can kill bands because people change, and you don't it's like your hair, you don't realise it's growing if you watch it all the time. You can't see it, can you? It's just there. But personalities are like that. When you're cooped up in a close environment, and you're young, and you're going from 23 to 24 to 25. They're massive years of change in your life, and you don't see it, but the tension comes with it, and it starts to creep in. But whereas for me, what I used to do was I couldn't stand it. Some of the tension that would creep in, and so I used to travel more with the road crew over, and I'd go. I didn't like the routine of having a tour bus with beds on it, but we'd still go to hotels after the gig, and then we'd get up and travel all day to the next gig. I'd go with the road crew overnight and sleep in the truck, and then wake up. What did
the band member think of that then?
I think they just thought I was mad. But in a way that brought its own tension because it distanced me from them in a way. Because I'd wake up in the next town at 9 o'clock in the morning or 10, and I even helped the crew load the PA in, you know, and all this stuff.
Good,
just to have something to do.
Yeah.
And then I'd go for a wander around town and buy some records, and I had time to myself to enjoy these great American or British cities that we were in, European.
Yeah.
And then they'd turn up at the sound check, and we'd play and do our gig, you know. But it does change you, you know. It's very hard to it's like being in a marriage that's starting to, you can't, you know, that's again with relationships with married couples, unless you work at it and keep it fresh, it can become stale, can't it? And can become bored of each other, and that's what happens to bands. And it's just, I'm sure it happens with football teams. You're stuck in that dressing room all the time. It spills over into something happens in the.
I've seen a few tests on the training ground. I've seen tests
and then
over the
it carries
years.
into the game sometimes, doesn't it? You know, it's just. But and you know, I think luckily for the best bands, they have really good management and good. They can look after each other, and you know, we didn't really have that in a way in the 80s. So life had to change for the band, and you know, I think we're going to change for the better ultimately.
Have you written many political or philosophical songs over the years?
Well, I've been involved in politics in a way, because, but not. I was never a political person. You know, the Alarm. We used to be described as political, but I say we're aspirational. You know, we're trying to inspire people to take control of their own lives.
Yeah.
You know, and make the best of themselves. That's what we were doing.
Yeah.
You know, for some reason we got tagged as being political because we grew up in that NME area with the Red Wedge and Billy Bragg and the Exmoor and the coal miner strikes. You know, we were involved in all that, and you know, because coming from Wales, we could, you know, the miner strike was happening all around us, so we donate our merchandise to the miners' welfare, for the family welfare. Whereas other people were sort of shouting it from, you know, and giving it the big one politically. We just got on with it quietly, and some people didn't see what we were doing because we didn't do it to gain, you know, any credibility for ourselves. We just got on with it. You know, and so we ended up with a bit of a run-in with the NME over that, even though we knew we were supportive and doing real things rather than just talking about it. And then we got really behind the Welsh language culture. I became really aware of the Welsh language and the Cymdeithas ODI with the Welsh Language Society, and they were taking a lot of direct action to have the signs in Wales changed back to Welsh because they were only in English, and we started supporting that campaign and supporting the Welsh Language Society, and I thought, and we whenever we played in Wales, we used to have a political statement of having a Welsh language band as our special guests. And I got in loads of debates then and say, look, you're going to play to a couple of thousand Alarm fans. Now they're in Wales, they're all like me, they're Welsh, but they've been denied the language for circumstances. So they're as Welsh as you, but they don't speak the language. So why don't you introduce one of your songs in English to tell them what it's about, so when they hear it in Welsh, they get a sense of it. Oh, that'd be selling out, that'd be. And I don't know, you're defeating, you know, language is about communication, not putting up barriers. So I thought the only way we can counteract that is we'll make our next album in Welsh and in English, and we'll go bilingual. And that was our sort of biggest politic, really, it was on a cultural level rather than taking sides. You know, because politics can be divisive with families and culture and communities. We thought, I've always been a believer that politics is really to bring people together, but in the social media area, it's become it's all negative. It's all about finger pointing. It's all about destroying the opposition. No one. I'd have a lot of respect for a politician who came out. Actually, I don't agree with them, but that's a really good idea. We'll back that. They just don't do that. It's all we've got better ideas than them, and it's like, let's work together, people. That's the only way we're going to politically succeed, is if we work together and accept we're going to be different, accept the rules are going to be different for each other, but try and work. Let's take the best ideas from the right, the best ideas from the left, bring them together and work together and create something that works for all of us at the same time.
In today's society, all this PC lot goes on, do you find it more difficult to write lyrics?
No, not
do you
really.
Think what you're doing?
No, Well, yeah, I suppose that's a good point. You do have to think what you're doing sometimes, you know, because you can't say his or her so much anymore.
Well, it's
kind
what you on about?
Yeah, you know. But I've only really ever written from experience, to be honest. So I'm not the kind of person who sits down and writes a song. I don't get the pen and paper out and the guitar and think, right, okay, I'm going to write a song today. They just appear. Right. That's how I think it is. You know, when I was a kid and walking home from my bar job, thinking, how do you write a song? I thought, well, no, I have no one to go to ask.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I can sing Complete Control by The Clash in my head, and I know it inside out, and I'll just, why not just invent my own song in my head, you know? And then there's a song called Nothing to Do, and it became the song for the Toilets, my first band. And that's all I do now, is I make songs in my imagination. I might hear a phrase spoken or a word I haven't heard for a long time, and it, you know, with the new album Forwards that we've got out today.
Yeah, we're going to talk.
I was in hospital with that last year, and there was a guy stood opposite my bed when there was no visiting times really in the hospital, because all the pandemic protocols were still in place. And I was not well, and I could see him, and he goes, "It's Mike Peters, isn't it?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "My dad's on the ward. I've flown in from America, and he's not doing well." And I thought, you know, just wanted to see him one more time, and I was telling all the Alarm fans, because he said, I'm a massive Alarm fan, that I've just seen Mike Peters on the cancer centre. He's not looking very good, you know. Right. I was thinking, oh no, it's out there. So I think I better go and write it. And Jules comes in to me and says, yeah, it's all on the forums. All the fans have realised you're in hospital and you're not well. They're all freaking out. Right. So I thought, okay, I better write a letter just to, you know, bring them up to speed and try to arrest the situation. So I wrote this letter, and I signed it off with the words I've never used before. Instead of best wishes or love Mike or cheers, I went Forwards Mike Peters. And as soon as I wrote that word down, the song went off like a rocket in my mouth. Okay, that's it. And luckily I knew I was in hospital for a long time, and I'd got my wife to bring my guitar in so I could keep my fingers going and keep a little bit of practice going. Yeah. And so I was able to work it out on the guitar right there.
Amazing,
and it happened, you know. And I always say to people, it happened to me once when we were touring with Bob Dylan in 1988, and I had to cross a border with him into Toronto. Well, I didn't know I was crossing it with him. We got off our tour buses, and when you cross a border, no matter who you are, you know, with the team flying abroad, you all have to get off and show your passports, don't you? So Bob Dylan is stood right in front of me in this line for the immigration, and I knew it was him because I could see his passport over his shoulder and all that. And a song appears in my imagination right there and then. I'm at a border crossing. There are no frontiers. There's no border lines. We can't cross tonight. Right. I went on the tour bus after we got through to the other side. There it was, and it ended up on our 1989 album Change. I was thinking, it says in the brackets, written by Mike Peters, Neil Arm and all that. But really, it should have said Bob Dylan, because the higher power sending it down missed Bob Dylan, got me instead. So that's where I think that came from.
When it comes to lyrics?
Not really, because I just always keep working. Right. You know, lyrics are hard to write.
Yeah,
so
imagine.
I find it's why it's best to write from experience, and then you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to offend anyone when you're singing about your own journey through life, and so you don't really have to take into consideration the political ramifications of modern society, because you're really just talking about yourself and your own experiences. And I don't write songs about other people or other characters. I don't create imaginary people to walk through their life in my song. I just write about what's happened to me, and that's why it's always been, you know, from the year go, it's been about what's happened and what I need. You know, it's become, I write the soundtrack to my own life really, and then hope it makes a connection to other people. That's you know, we had an incident when we were called 17 for the Alarm, where we tried to kidnap a journalist from the NME and force him to come and see our band, and we thought once he sees us he'll realise how good we are. So we come up with this whole plan of kidnapping the guy, and we all broke into the NME offices, and under the auspices having a meeting with somebody, and then when he came out to meet us in the corridor, we kind of grabbed him and tried to shove him in the lift and get him out into the van, you know.
What, in a jokey way or a real?
In a real way.
Oh, in a
like
real way.
A proper, and it got a bit
heated
ugly and a bit embarrassing.
Right.
and there was a guy from the NME called Roy Carr. He's not with us anymore, but he passed away. But he was a very respected older music writer, and he sort of pulled me aside. They all came running out to break it all up, and he pulled me aside. He said, "Look, Mike, I get what you're trying to do here. I understand it, but this isn't the way to do it." He said, "Look, all the energy you've just done there," he said, "take that and put it into the next song you write, and let that be the thing. Let the music be the thing that drags people or forces people to come and see your band. Because if your music's good enough, it'll bring people from all around the world. But this isn't the way forward." And it's stuck with me forever. And that's always done. Put my own energy into my music.
Good advice.
And if it, so I'm happy if only. And I say this to other bands, how can we make it? I say, well, just write your best song. If it's only meant to play in the garage at a weekend, then accept it. It's great. If it's meant to take you all the way, it's a bit like a footballer, isn't it? You've got a certain amount of skill. Yeah. If it only means you play Sunday league, you don't. It doesn't mean you give up and you don't. You can't enjoy it. You can enjoy it more. Yeah. But if it takes you all the way to the Premier League, then celebrate that as well. But don't. I should imagine, and this is the sort of point where a lot of young kids get let go out of football, don't they? They do. The contracts get passed up on, and I think I often read stories about kids. They go off football by then, but because it's become a career, it's become more. It becomes
serious when you turn professional. It becomes serious. The enjoyment gets taken away.
You've got to keep the enjoyment. If you're not enjoying it, you'll never get your next contract. You have to be. To play football, to play music, you've got to be free. I think you have to be enjoy. You have to be walking it with no fear. You don't care whether you get a contract. Before the Alarm, we cared about getting a record contract, and it was dragged us down. We felt like we got 10 songs. We played them for 3 years. We just changed them a little bit, and we thought we weren't learning because we weren't writing new songs. And it was. I think that's what can happen to footballers. You get so tight, you're so worried about your contract, you're not playing with the freedom to learn new skills and go forward.
Well, I played with a team here just outside Glasgow in Greenock Morton, and I was there 3 years. I was only a fringe player, and I got released, and I chucked again for 1 year.
Wow.
Played with my mates just in local parks, and then I came back, and that was it.
You're freer then because you're not afraid of the drop, are you?
I wasn't afraid of all that, you know what I mean? Let's see, your first appearance Top of the Pops was in 1983, by God.
Yeah.
Are we that old?
Yeah, we are. It's been a long time, isn't it?
It was miming back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was,
Because obviously now I think you have to sing live.
Sometimes, I don't think...
How did you find that?
We were all right with it, really. I remember our manager, Ian Wilson, saying to us, look, when we first did our first run-through, we all stood apart like we do on stage. Right. And then Ian, our manager, said, look, behind you, there's all these going to be all these dancers in later on tonight.
Is that the Pans People lot?
Yeah, or no, just members of the audience, and they'd all be like flapping their flares and all that sort of stuff. And they look like they're part of the band somehow because they stood behind, they were all around us. So he said, look, group together, stand as close as you can. When the camera comes in, they're just going to see you to block out the noise. And he was right, and it made for a really powerful performance. But we didn't realise it. But that engaged the audience. Wow, look at them. They're all 3 guys stood right in the thing with a drummer behind them, and you didn't see all the dancers.
Right.
So that kind of worked for us. But later, in Top of the Pops, it was always a thrill to go on. But then when you did it 3 or 4 times, because you weren't playing live, you felt that you weren't doing your best. So it became a bit of a long day in a weird
Who
sort
were
of way.
some of the bands on that night? Can you remember?
The very first time we did Top of the Pops was I think Culture Club were on it.
Boy George.
Karma Chameleon was number 1.
Yeah, right.
I remember that, and a few other bands. And then we came back once, and it was Aha were number 1, and it was the first time when they stopped wearing their ripped jeans, and they wore dinner suits to come on. I remember that one. And then we did in '84. We did our 3rd one, and that was when we got there. It was Madonna was doing her first ever Top of the Pops. The Smiths were on.
Oh, I want to ask you about the Smiths. Yeah. So Madonna, the Smiths, who else?
And the Echo and the Bunnymen doing Killing Moon.
Yeah, brilliant.
So we thought, wow, we got it. And the Smiths had all the flowers, all the
the gladiolas.
They had all that, and Madonna had nothing on, that was her thing. And then the Bunnymen had an orchestra, and they were doing the Killing Moon. And we thought, well, we're just going to be the same as we were last time with 3 acoustic guitars. What are we going to do, And we had a line, it was Where We Hiding When the Storm Broke, so we had this line in the song about all cards are marked. So I said, I'll tell you what, get some playing cards, and when we get to the middle of the song, I'll throw all these playing cards into the audience. And then my mate said, but you still have your guitar on. He said, well, I'll throw the guitar, you catch the guitar halfway through the song, and then I can throw the playing cards. Yeah, great. So we're all set up, and it's all, no run through, we're just going to surprise the top of the pop producer, blah, blah, blah. So we get the thing, and I get my guitar off, and I shook over to my mate, Richard Mod Jones, and he's so busy looking at Madonna who's watching us, he's forgotten now, and the guitar goes sailing past him, smashes on the floor, and the playing cards are going over. But we made a big impression nonetheless. And then I had to go and get Morrissey's autograph. There's a kid lived down the street from where I lived in Brill.
Right.
As you do,
Yeah, of course.
And he said, can you get me Morrissey's autograph? So I nervously knocked on the door of the Smiths dressing room, and Johnny Marr opened the door, and he went, "Oh, Mike, come in, love where we love all the backing vocals." And Morrissey was sat in the corner on the floor getting ready for his gig, and he looked up and he said hello to me.
Did he hand you a gladiola?
Yeah. It was really nice.
Did you meet him? Yeah, was you okay?
He was really nice. He got and said hello. I didn't ask him too much. He had a hearing aid thing in.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And the flowers and he signed the autograph.
No bother.
No,
right.
Who's it for? To Chris Morrissey.
Yeah.
Great. And then and I bumped into Morrissey a few times, and he's always been really nice to me. And
you hear different conflicting stories, Johnny Marr.
He when he did an interview with Q magazine a number of years ago, and they said, "What if you hadn't been in the Smiths? What would have happened?" He goes, "I'd have probably been the bass player in the Alarm." So which is cool. And
so great memories, top of the pops.
Yeah, absolutely. And Morrissey's, I saw U2 with him in Dublin. On the when they were doing the All You Can't Leave Behind tour, and we walked into the gig and no one knew who he was, and for about 20 minutes we were watching, and someone, Morrissey, off he went.
Right, wow, right.
Yeah, and he was that was amazing.
I remember Morrissey latched onto a lad who I know, Cornelius Carr, boxer.
Oh yeah.
I think he was boxer. Was at Manchester, London, and Morrissey's agent asked him, "Can you have a 40?" And Cornelius Carr didn't know who Morrissey was.
Right, yeah,
and it ended up, he was on the backdrop for the whole tour.
Yeah.
And Morrissey had sent him a note at the time, and he wasn't a Smiths fan, and he's binned it.
Wow, amazing.
Wow, now he looks back and thinks, we should have kept it.
My mate, the drummer in the Alarm is a guy called Smiley, and he was Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros drummer after Joe had left the Clash.
Right.
And when they were on tour in America, Damien Hirst, the massive artist, used to go on the tour with them all. And they got to the end of the tour, and at the end of the tour they were all sat round having a dinner, and Damien Hirst went round everyone's napkin and did a drawing on it and signed it, and as a sort
brilliant
of thing. And Smiley thought, chucked it in the bin. What a mistake. Wow. Probably worth a load of money now. But
the first time I met you, well, you mentioned the Smiths and Morrissey, top of the pops, mentioned that. You've met and performed with some outstanding talent. You've mentioned Bono, U2, Bob Dylan. Yeah. I've read Neil Young, Sting, Springsteen. That must be some, do you sometimes find yourself and think, I'm from Wales here, let me come for a council estate in Glasgow and you meet certain people.
Well, I did a gig in Ibiza once with Charlie Nicholas on back in
did you, Charlie Nicholas?
When I was a kid growing up, they used to have a thing called, I think it was called Soccer Sixes or Five-a-Side.
Yeah.
And it used to be on ITV or something.
Yeah.
And I can remember watching it once and seeing Charlie Nicholas playing for Celtic.
Yeah, he put it.
And he scored a load of goals, and I thought, what a player. He looked like George Best to me.
Right.
And so then he eventually made it as a big player with Celtic and went to Arsenal. And then when we were in 1984, after our first album, went on holiday. My mum booked my holidays for me. I didn't know how to do it. Rockstar on TV doesn't know how to book a holiday. and so my mum booked me to San Antonio in Ibiza, where she'd taken me as a kid. And I thought, okay, I didn't know anything about it. So get there, And I go out to this bar called Confusion, and I realise it's full of footballers.
Right.
And there's Charlie Nicholas and I knew him from, obviously, because he played for Arsenal.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, a bit nervous, and I was having me beer. And then eventually we got talking, me and Charlie, and he was the same about me. He spotted that I was from The Alarm.
Yeah.
And
he was a big music fan.
He was a big...
And he liked Bono.
He left The Alarm, Simple Minds,
yeah.
U2. And he said, well, look, when I go and play Arsenal, I put Declaration by The Alarm on to fire me up, you know, for the games.
Yeah.
And we became really good friends. And then we ended up, he got me into all these matches with people like Paul McStay. And
Paul McStay lives in Australia now, you know.
Does he? Yeah,
his
wow,
family,
okay, yeah, great. And Mo Johnston.
Mo Johnston,
yeah.
was the first Catholic he signed for Rangers.
Yeah, wow. And
Caused riots.
Yeah, I'm sure. And there was Paul Bracewell who played for Everton.
Yeah, the midfield lad. I know he's partly with Kenny Douglas.
Yeah.
So it was mobbed of footballers.
It was incredible. And so Charlie said, come and have a game, and we'd all play football against the holiday reps at the back of San Antonio.
Don't tell me you get beat.
No, don't worry about it. It was incredible. And then they got me to put on a gig in this club called Es Paradis, and I had Charlie as one of the backing singers and all that sort of stuff.
Great,
great. And it was all the players were watching us. You know,
brilliant.
It was a fantastic night, and that's the great thing about music. It's really interactive, and
of course it is. I think if I say to you, would you rather be a footballer, professional footballer, playing top flight, or a musician?
As a kid, I'd rather been a footballer.
Yeah, I would rather be a musician.
Now I'm a musician. I'm glad I was a musician.
All right.
Because it carries on.
Yeah.
But even for footballers, it carries on, but not at the same level.
No,
you know,
that's right.
and it's the same for musicians. You can still play. You know, I've played in lots of testimonial games. With players from all the Wales teams and Paul McStay and not Paul McStay.
Too many to mention.
Too many to
mention. Yeah, if you played in a few, there's loads of different players.
The guy Paul Power that played for Man City.
Yeah, I remember him.
An education. He got to play at Main Road, and then played at Old Trafford through Mickey Thomas.
Mickey Thomas is a character.
Goodison Park and at Wrexham with Joey Jones and all that. And they all enjoy their football. I remember one playing with Terry Yorath once.
Terry Yorath,
and he was so he was stood in midfield with me, and he allowed me to really enjoy the game.
Yeah.
And he's imparting his knowledge.
Yeah.
And there was one game I played in. I played for BBC Manchester in the Paul Power testimony at Main Road, and we won the tournament in the daytime. So our prize was to play Old Man City at half time, and I was young and fit. I was probably 24, 25, could get around the pitch and all that. Thought it was all right, and then I'm playing against Mike Summerby, Glyn Pardoe, Tony Book, all the legends of Man City.
Did you try and kick them because you were a United fan?
Yeah, well, I did, yeah. But I thought, wait, I thought we don't need to kick these. They're all in their 50s and 60s. We'll hammer this.
Couldn't get the ball off them.
Couldn't get near them. And they were doing me in the head. I can remember stood going in with the ball, and Glyn Pardoe and Tony Book, they shepherded me where they took me where they wanted me to go. I didn't go where I was going. Yeah. They did me with the eyes. They led me where they could easily take the ball off, professionally take the ball.
Wow.
Mike Summerby said, there's a great crowd in tonight, Mike, innit? And I'm, yeah, great, well, look at that. Next minute, he's over there, he's got the ball, it's in the back of the net. He's just made me look over there and he's gone in a split second, and they knew how to do you with
of course,
with professionalism.
No matter what age you are, if you're
they could
see
how naive you are, and that was my biggest lesson in football I ever had. And I thought, I wish I could have taken that lesson back to being 16. Might have made it.
As a former footballer, I go to games and I become a critic.
Right, yeah.
I can't just sit there. I watch my team, Middlesbrough, and I sit there and I think, he should have done that. You as a musician, you go and see bands, no doubt.
You do. You can't help it.
You actually pick holes in it. I mean, I go and just enjoy it.
You do, yeah.
Because I don't play any instrument.
You do. I have to divorce myself from that at times.
Okay, I'm glad you said that.
I have to say to myself, look, don't go looking at the production or how the crew run on or how they've got it set up. Just go and enjoy it. Remember, you're there as a fan.
I
like to stay as a fan. I
remember
not that long ago when Liam Gallagher brought his first solo album out. I think we were playing in Aberdeen on the day it came out.
Right.
And we played the night before, and we were in our minibus going down to the next gig, and I stopped at the HMV, bought Liam Gallagher's album because I like vinyl.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
came
love
in,
vinyl, yeah.
And then Smiley, our drummer, says, "Hey, well, it's on Spotify. Let's have a listen." And we're listening on a speaker like a phone. It's tiny. We put the record on, and we're all going, "Ha ha ha! This is rubbish. This is nowhere near as good as Oasis." Ha ha. And then I said, "Hang on a minute. We're listening to this on this tiny little tinny speaker. Let's get a CD from the next." And we stopped halfway somewhere and we got a CD and we put it on the proper stereo in the bus, in the tour bus, and then all of the bottom end kicks in, the power of the music. We thought, wow, this is amazing.
Right.
And we've been too critical of it. We realised that we'd all gone, and we didn't give it the proper chance. So now I always make sure I listen to music in a proper setting,
before
turn
you
it
make
up
a
loud,
judgment.
because it's so easy to make a judgment on music now by listening to a clip on YouTube on your phone, and you just put it on the air
it's distorted the sound,
and it's just like some tinny noise but recorded at the back of the audio. Well, that doesn't look very good. I'm not going to see that tour. And you think, hang on a minute, that's not the way to, you've got to go and make the proper judgment. So now I've sort of distanced myself from being the critique, because you can be.
Of course,
and it spoils it for you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I want to go and enjoy the gig now. Jules, my wife's really good at stuff.
Yeah, I always
Stop
say music never
criticising.
lets you down, because you just go and enjoy it. If you know there's
There's always something good, no matter, even if it's an artist you don't particularly like. They'll always do something. There's always something to be found that well, that was really good, or that musician's brilliant. There's always something there. But if you divorce yourself from maybe your own prejudice to the music, or the fact I'm not going to like this, I'm not going to, I don't want to go. Well, I just think you're lucky to be going to enjoy it.
Yeah, you're right.
My wife took me to see a band from Milky Chance that she's discovered, and I thought, I'm not going to like them.
Milky Chance.
And I went there. They were amazing. They're absolutely brilliant, and they're kind of like a YouTube phenomena band that broke, and it's a bit dancey but they're quite an alternative band, and you realise that when it's all guitars, and they were amazing live, and I was blown away, and I was glad I went to see that. So you can be surprised by music.